Bishop, honored guests, delegates, it's a good time to be a United Methodist in the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference. No, wait a minute, that's not right. It's a great time to be a United Methodist in the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference. I'm excited about the challenges and opportunities we have ahead of us. First, though, let's look back briefly at the past year. The Board of Lay Ministry sponsored its usual events, the Lay Academy and Tools for Ministry. Lay Academy was attended by about 150 people, including 40 first-timers, 85 Christ servant ministers, 17 local church servants, 4 certified lay ministers, and 1 clergy person. The 10 instructors were clergy people and certified lay ministers. Feedback from the participants was enthusiastically positive. This year's Lay Academy will be held again at the Inn at Reading on Saturday and Sunday, August 13 and 14, with 10 different courses offered. Registration is now open, and you can get additional information on courses offered and even register at the Lay Academy table in the exhibition area. We've changed the format somewhat to a 2-day event that only requires 1 overnight stay to help reduce travel costs. How many of you have been to a Lay Academy? Good number of hands. If you haven't been, talk to one of these folks. They can tell you all about it. Tools for Ministry was conducted in each district, as we normally do, and offered practical courses for local church leadership and outreach. The 6 sessions were held on Saturdays in March and April. And because of the timing, I was available to attend 3 of the sessions. Feedback from all 6 was excellent, but I have to tell you about the Northeast District. They conducted a poverty simulation. I know Reverend Cotto has already mentioned it in his remarks. He stole my thunder. They had this poverty simulation exercise in the morning with a follow-up discussion and then classes in the afternoon. Now, the poverty simulation is not a game, but a surprisingly realistic simulation of what it is like to experience survival existence when you live at a poverty level. My eyes were opened to many aspects of poverty with which I have had no experience. If you ever have a chance to participate or even observe a poverty simulation, I strongly encourage you to do so. It may be a life-changing experience. The laity in our local churches continue to do ministry both inside and outside the walls of their buildings. Some examples: West Lawn UMC continues to feed thousands through their kitchen ministry. Way to go, West Lawn. My own home church, Grove UMC, packaged 27,000 meals for Stop Hunger Now. Hopewell UMC continues its drama ministry, which they're known for their presentations of the Passion Play, but they're presenting this year Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, one of my favorites, in its 900-seat outdoor amphitheater. In fact, tonight is opening night. But you all are going to be at ordination service. So you've got a couple more weekends to go. Now, Hopewell is a little bit off the beaten path, but if you can get there, it'll be well worth the trip. There have been several celebrations also. Midtown Parish was able to work through all the regulatory paperwork and finally received its new buildings. They're in the process of getting everything. Yeah, let's hear it for Midtown. They're in the process of getting everything hooked up and connected and working in preparation for a grand dedication. My wife and I attended the centennial celebration at Ross Street UMC just a couple weeks ago in Lancaster. It was the first time that I personally have experienced a confirmation, an infant baptism, and communion all in the same service. and the bishop preached. And we got it all done in an hour and a half. It was a joyous event. My wife and I also attended the 50th anniversary celebration service at Hancock UMC in Springfield. While there, we realized that Donna's aunt, uncle, and cousins had attended Hancock when they lived in Springfield many years ago, and that Donna had attended Hancock when visiting them. Quite a year, and I haven't even mentioned General Conference. So where do we go from here? Look ahead. What do you see? Change. Change is coming. In the next year, this conference could go from 6 districts to 4, or not. We could have a new bishop, or not. Many of your churches are experiencing a pastoral change this year. That's normal, but still somewhat disconcerting. Change can be difficult. Change can be unpleasant. We build up all this inertia in our lives, and then suddenly something's different. New leaders, new direction, new ways of doing things, etc., etc. Change also brings new hope, new excitement, new challenges, and new opportunities. I'm looking forward to the changes coming in the next year, not because I'm dissatisfied with the status quo, but because the changes will present new opportunities for all of us. How will you deal with the change? I think a simple approach is best. I suggest you start with prayer, be positive, and remember to focus on our primary purpose, to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. In other words, keep the main thing the main thing. Everything else will fall to the side. More specifically, here's what I suggest you do. When you return to your local churches, report to the congregation on what happened at annual conference and your experience there. Don't leave that up to just the pastor. Our congregations want to hear a layperson's perspective also. Be positive and ask everyone to keep the main thing the main thing. Report to your ad boards or ad councils, Sunday school class, or even better, to the congregation on Sunday morning. I'm sure your pastor will give you 5 minutes or so, and that's really all you need. Let me summarize. Last year was a great year. Changes are coming, or not, but probably. We should approach change positively. You need to communicate this to your congregations. And lastly, good news, bad news, whatever, we all need to keep the main thing, making disciples for Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. It's a great time to be a United Methodist in the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Koch. And now we'll hear from the United Methodist Women, followed by the United Methodist Men. This is Barbara Drake, representing United Methodist Women.
Bishop Johnson and members of the annual conference, as the immediate past president of United Methodist Women, I'm representing UMW because I'm bringing you greetings from our current co-presidents, Gladys Hubbard and Susan Zook, who are attending the Northeast Jurisdiction meeting in Syracuse, New York. They're electing our national leaders for the next 4 years, who will guide us in putting our faith, hope, and love into action on behalf of women, children, and youth. United Methodist Women is the largest organized group of Christian women in the world, with about 8 million members. The women who are being elected by each of the jurisdictions to serve as national directors will have the responsibility of determining how our money will be spent to support missions and train women to be leaders in mission. Last year, our national mission giving exceeded $12 million, which will support our almost 100 national mission institutions, our United Methodist missions around the world, and our UMW regional missionaries who work with women in their geographical area. It's important to realize that the $12 million given by members of United Methodist Women is in addition to the money that we give to support our own churches and the mission projects of our local units. Here in Eastern Pennsylvania, we have about 4,000 members of United Methodist Women, who last year gave $165,707 to support the work of United Methodist Women last year. United Methodist Women members are getting ready to celebrate our 150th anniversary in 2019. In preparation for our anniversary, a legacy fund was established to raise money during the 5 years leading up to 2019. Last year, over $426,000 was given to the legacy fund. This money is creating an endowment fund to ensure that United Methodist Women will be able to continue for the next 150 years and beyond. The goal is to raise enough money for the legacy fund so that the income from the endowment will cover all the administrative expenses of running UMW after 2019. Then all the money given to our mission pledge can go directly to missions. Today, I want to highlight 3 of the programs of United Methodist Women here in Eastern Pennsylvania. First is Mission U. As Dean of Mission U this year, I can tell you that the Planning Committee met last Saturday to finalize the details. We're trying something new this year, just as Laity Academy is, by shortening the event. We'll be meeting on Friday evening and all day Saturday, July 22nd and 23rd. We have 2 reasons for shortening the schedule. First, we have decreased the cost to make it possible for more people to attend. And secondly, we have eliminated Sunday so that more pastors and church musicians can participate. So pastors, we're hoping to see you there. Mission U is not just for women. Men and youth are encouraged to attend. Everyone gets to select one of 3 courses being offered. The options this year are climate justice, the Bible and human sexuality, and Latin America. The youth will explore climate justice. If you haven't registered yet, you still have time. Registration brochures are at the UMW display table. If you had never attended a Mission U, which was formerly called the School of Christian Mission, you have missed out on a great event, and I encourage you to give it a try this year. We have experienced study leaders coming to challenge us to learn and to grow in our faith and to discover new ways to put our faith into action. The second event I want to tell you about is Girls on the Go. This is a retreat for teenage girls aged 13 to 18. It was held in March at Gretna Glen Camp and Retreat Center. 31 girls and 6 chaperones had a great weekend with Pravina Balasundaram leading the girls in exploring what happiness means for Christians. I encourage you to think about sending girls from your church next year. It's a great opportunity for the girls to get to know girls from other churches and districts and of other races and ethnic groups while they have fun times together and an opportunity to grow in their faith and participate in a mission project. This year, the girls brought items and assembled 18 school kits for UMCOR. In addition, Mei Ling Blackstone shared with the girls about her trip to China with the Northeast Jurisdiction Mission of Peace. Thirdly, I want to tell you about our UMW in-gatherings. These are run by the District United Methodist Women to gather clothing and other items needed by agencies serving low-income families in each of the districts. In addition to the thousands of new items donated, money is collected for grants to the agencies. And last year, the money turned in by the UMW units totaled $12,247. Grants were then given to 12 agencies located in all 6 districts. Pastors, I want to remind you that you are members of United Methodist Women. If the church you are currently serving does not have an active unit of UMW, our district and conference officers are available to come to your church to talk to your women about becoming actively involved in our great organization. United Methodist Women is a community of women whose purpose is to know God and to experience freedom as whole persons through Jesus Christ, to develop a creative, supportive fellowship, and to expand concepts of mission through participation in the global ministries of the church. Finally, to all the women present, I invite you to learn more about United Methodist Women by reading our Response magazine and our Flame newsletter, and by attending our conference, district, and local unit events. And thank you to all the women who are working to support our United Methodist Women in mission.
Thank you, Barbara. Lots of good things happening, lots of opportunities for resourcing. Now let's hear from our United Methodist men, Mr. Clifford Hubbard.
Bishop Johnson and our fellow delegates, good afternoon. I must say, it's really a hard act to follow United Methodist Women. I don't think I can come anywhere close to talking about as many things as they have, but believe me, we plan to get there. We would like, first of all, to start by acknowledging all the support that we get from the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference, from our bishop, the cabinet, and our lay leader, and all of the personnel and officers on the conference level. This has been a very difficult year for the United Methodist Men, as Ross Brightwell, our longtime president, resigned last fall and then passed away in the spring. Ross did so much for the United Methodist Men that it left us rudderless. Fortunately, we had some capable people come forward to keep us going, and I'm not going to say that I'm capable. I don't know if I'm capable of filling Ross's shoes or not. One of the things I found out was that he has some large shoes to fill. But I did become the interim president at the time of his resignation. We were fortunate that Herm Turnage, our vice president, stayed on. Delno Moyer, our treasurer, stayed on. And we were fortunate in getting David Marks, who came on board as our secretary. And he's done a lot to help us to get organized with paperwork and things of that sort. We were also fortunate in having Dennis Wack, who was our prayer advocate, because believe me, we needed a lot of prayer during our organization time. One of the first things we discovered as we began our reorganization, we found that we had no constitution, no bylaws. So that was one of the first things we had to really work on, and we were successful at coming up with a constitution and bylaws, which really was something that David Marks took on, and he did a great job in putting this together. We recently approved the Constitution, and our bylaws, and we also elected the current officers to continue on until we can have our annual gathering of our men, which we haven't had in the last few years, but we're planning on having that. And at that time, we will finalize our Constitution and finalize the bylaws, and also begin the normal regular cycle of electing our officers. Some of the things we have done, we're trying to keep some of the activities that Ross had established, which we felt were very worthwhile, and we were adding some new things, but the things that we are continuing on, we have already had the night at the Sixers. On the 16th of July, we will have United Methodist Day at the Phillies, and for those churches that are not aware of it or who have not taken time to order tickets. The information is in the New Spirit, and it's also on the conference website. We also have coming up a day at Dorney Park, and that will be in August. The date has not been set yet, but I just got finished talking to John Coleman. He told me as soon as I get him a date, that will be sent out to all of you so you and your families can take part in that. One of the things that we're missing, and I know some people already had asked me about it, we annually have a potato drop at annual conference. Well, several things happened. The first being that the facilities here did not really lend itself to us having the potato drop. There was not a place where we could have the potatoes shipped into, where we could distribute them, so we had made the decision that we would not have the potato drop. Our plans then shifted to the adjourned session, where we felt as though there would be ample space where we could have potatoes delivered and distributed. And then we suddenly found out that St. Andrews, who sponsors the potato drop, is not sponsoring it this year. But I think we found out just yesterday that we have a possibility of getting potatoes from another place, and Dennis, Derek Gutierrez, who will be heading that, will be working on getting that date together. So we're hoping that at the adjourned session we'll be able to have a potato drop. We also are going to continue the softball tournament, the United Methodist softball tournament, which Ross established. We're going to change the name of it. It's going to become the Ross Brightwell Memorial United Methodist softball tournament. And ladies are invited to play, and we have had some of our teams in the past that have had some women on their team and teenage girls on their team, and I think they were better than some of the men were. We do have some other things we have in mind that we're going to do. One of the things that we are planning on doing is expanding our ministries. One of the first things we're going to do, we have already set up a program where we're going to rehabilitate a house for a needy family. So that will be something that's coming up. We're going to do some other things which are would also be considered to be family type things and fellowship type things. We're planning on having a fossil hunt in the Schuylkill Haven area, along with, and this is Dennis Wack's favorite, he's going to have us watching some eagles on Hawk Mountain. We're also still going to plan to have the Day at the Zoo, which is another family outing, to give all families to get a chance to go out, take their children out, and go and visit our zoo in Philadelphia. We are in the process of having a soccer event down in Chester with our soccer team. And I had someone come to me yesterday and said, well, you know, it's kind of difficult for us to come from the Northeast and to come down to Philly's game, but how about if we can have a game up in Lehigh Valley with the teams up there? I also got a suggestion that we can't do anything with the Eagles, but how about going to the Arena Football League and go see the Soul play, so that's also a thing we might do. We're working on setting up a used clothing program, which we've already started, and right now our drop-off, the one drop-off point is in the Central District, and our drop-off point is at Tenley Temple. We were hoping on setting up the same type of program or similar type program in our other districts, and have a drop-off point in a needy area within the various districts. We're also working on reorganizing our web page, which is on the conference website. And right now we're focused on getting ourselves properly organized, and it's a big job. And once we get that organized, we will be on our way. One of the things that we are involving ourselves in, we're planning on awarding or making available a scholarship to a needy young person to go to camp during this summer. We haven't worked out all the details concerning that, but we will be getting that information out so we can see if we can find a needy youngster or youngsters who we can sponsor at camp this summer. We're also going to concentrate a little bit more on working with our districts and our local churches. This has been a kind of a weak point in the past. We have not done a lot with the districts, but we do want to get our districts organized and work more with our local churches. And also, just as Barbara said, we would like to have all of our churches have a United Methodist men's group. As a matter of fact, if you look in the discipline, it says that all churches shall have a United Methodist men's group. It doesn't say you might decide to have one, it says you shall have one. So what we will be doing, we will be getting in contact with our organized groups already. We'll also be getting in touch with those churches that do not have an organized group, and at least try to get a contact at each church that we can correspond with and see if we can increase our number of churches that are chartered. And once we get all of these things done, we'll be on our way. And as I said, we will be catching up with the women and hopefully having programs that we can have something that shines upon us as the women do. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hubbard. And I think all of us know Ross Brightwell. He was always here dashing around, calling for baseball tickets and doing great work among us for so many years. So I'd just like to pause for a moment to thank God for his ministry among us for many years of service in the United Methodist Men. Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for Ross Brightwell and all that he has done and all the times he was at annual conference, calling for men's ministries and family ministries and sports events that help to build community. And we know, Lord, that he's with you and he's probably organizing things up there right now. But God, we miss him and we thank you for his ministry among us. And we just pray for the future of men's ministry in this conference, that it'll go on in the strength of that spirit and, of course, in your spirit. For this we pray in your name. Amen. Amen. Now, the body asked at the substitute amendment to 2016-01 was copied and put on a PowerPoint. I hope the body will give me some forbearance in that making a copy for every single human in this building, every single time there's a substitute, would be cost prohibitive, not to mention we'd have to leave the building to make copies. So we were able to make enough copies so that there's one on every table. This is the substitute motion that was made by Reverend Andrew Foster. And so I'm just asking if you'll just share around your table that piece of paper that showed up. The tellers have given every table a page, I think. Is there any table that does not have a substitute motion? And like I said, of course, it'll be on the wall as well. I see a hand over here. And of course, you have to share. You know, it's like one page for every table. So don't hog it. You know, once you read it, you pass it around, and you can huddle around it. But again, it will be on the wall as well. And again, we have several orders of the day, and according to General Conference rules, we have the mandate. It's kind of a General Conference mandate that once you have a substitution, you pick which one you're going to play with, okay? We're not going to spend 2 hours wordsmithing the substitute. We're going to decide if we want the substitute or we want the original motion from Reverend DiPaolo. And then once we decide which one, then we can amend and deal with that. Do you all understand that? That's how we operate in General Conference, and our rules allow us to follow the rules of General Conference. It saves time, and it just cuts down on confusion. So we have the amendment, the substitution, and the original, if you want to get that out, that's the first page of our resolution book. And at this time, we get to vote between the two. And again, we're not going to wordsmith it. But I think I'll give each of the makers a chance to say something, and then we can vote on which one. Or no, we'll start with the substitute. The substitute. Reverend Foster, you want to say a word, and then we can vote. We'll ask if there's questions, and if not, we'll vote. And if you want that one to be the main motion, you vote for that one. If not, it goes back to the first one. Microphone number 1.
Bishop Andrew L. Foster III, Clergy East District. I really don't have any additional language to share. I just want to say that it just makes sense. It's much more succinct, and it speaks to justice issues. So that's really what I have to say.
Will you just read the therefore resolved?
I just gave my copy. 1 second.
Well, it's up on the wall now. There you go.
want me to read what's printed or just?
Just read it as it's printed.
Okay.
Just so in case someone can't see very well, they're
Certainly.
going to hear it one last time, and then we
Yes, ma'am.
ask questions, then we're going to vote. Which one?
Whereas the current rules of order of the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference are silent on the process by which Episcopal candidates are endorsed, and whereas paragraph 405.1 of the 2012 Book of Discipline provides that an annual conference in the session immediately prior to the next regular session of the jurisdictional or central conference may name one or more nominees for Episcopal election. Therefore, be it resolved that the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference Rules of Order be amended as follows. The jurisdictional delegation may, by its own vetting process, present one or more names for nomination to the annual conference. If the jurisdictional delegation places one or more names before the conference for nomination, the conference shall then proceed to confirm said nominee or nominees individually by 60% of the vote by those present and eligible to vote. Additional nominations from the floor shall then be in order. The ordained elder and full connection who is being nominated from the floor shall have given his or her consent prior to the making of the nomination. Once all nominations from the floor have been received, the annual conference shall proceed to indicate a nominee or nominees by ballot vote as follows. Each floor nominee shall be voted on individually, and any person receiving 60% of the vote would move forward as a nominee endorsed by the Eastern Pennsylvania Conference. The jurisdictional delegation shall not be bound by any action of the delegation or the annual conference regarding confirmed and/or endorsed nominees when the jurisdictional delegates cast their votes at jurisdictional conference. Paragraph 405.1, 2012 Book of Discipline.
Are there any questions? Again, we're not going to vet this or fine-tune it. You just kind of have a sense of which one of the two of these you feel needs working on and passing eventually. Questions? Anyone at the mic? Microphone number one.
Rob Timlin, Rules Church. My question for Reverend Foster and Reverend DiPaolo, trying to sort out the difference here. My understanding is the original resolution came from the conference delegation as a whole, and now, Reverend Foster, was yours discussed with the delegation, or is it coming from you as an individual, or how did that process, with two different resolutions, can you give us an idea how the difference came about?
Yes, the amendment is coming from me as a life member of BMCR, Black Methodist Church Renewal, which is an organization that is recognized by our denomination to be an agitating consciousness of our denomination. And when I saw the first resolution at our pre-district conference, it did not seem to be just for persons of color. So therefore, that conversation was had with several persons of the delegation, hence the amendment.
Okay, any other questions? Microphone number one.
Jim McIntyre, Hope Church. I had a question for Andrew. Why the change from two-thirds, which is 66%, to 60%? And then secondly, there was a removal of the requirement that the nominee have 10 persons assigning on to their nomination, and that was removed.
Jim, the reason for 60% is because at jurisdictional conference, we have used 50 and or 60%. It's almost impossible mathematically for this body to elect someone with two-thirds, which was almost 67%. So it just made sense to give voice to everyone that has a name tag. So that's the reason for the 60%. The second piece, the 10 nominees, that, as I understand, is not really a parliamentary procedure, and that is not part of my amendment.
Okay, I don't see anyone else. Reverend DiPaolo, you want to make a statement? And
Just
then
the
we'll
last few
go to a vote.
comments on this. I would emphasize this is not my resolution. It is, in fact, the resolution that was prepared by the delegation over the course of a number of meetings this year, in which we really wrestle with a lot of different things. The two-thirds, 67 or 60%, these are things the body can certainly alter as they go forward in terms of the threshold. The one thing I would like to point out is that the number 2 in the resolution, which requires a two-thirds vote of the body to endorse the recommendation of the jurisdictional delegation was deliberately made a very high threshold. In other words, you have to be very much sold on our recommendation for that to pass. If that doesn't get 2/3, if it falls anywhere short, if it gets 65%, then the floor is entirely open to nominations for anyone. So there is nothing here that prevents anyone from making those nominations if you're not satisfied with the delegation's recommendation. Again, this was put in place to try to put something in place. There's been nothing. And so every 4 years, we've been sort of starting fresh again. And the idea was to get something that would guide us, that we could certainly perfect as years went forward, but have something in the rules that would be in place to help us in our deliberations.
Microphone number 6.
The question I have, this is Jane Bonner from Bethlehem United Methodist Thornton, is that there's nothing here about biographies, and when you're going to be elected for most things, you have to have something like that. Is there something I missed here?
Again, we're just debating which one to consider. That almost begins to be vetting this.
I'm just trying to understand how
you're right.
the differences are, and that struck me as odd. Thank you.
Reverend Foster, you want to respond to that? Microphone number 1, please.
We've had ample time, and I was a jurisdictional delegate in 2012. I am aware of that process in terms of receiving bios and the like. But this amendment does not speak to that. This amendment is for this conference to move forward. The 500 bios for clergy and 500 for laity, that is not the issue that I'm bringing forth today.
Anything else? Again, we're simply going to decide which one to work with. And we might not get it finished today because it takes a while. But I want to make sure everyone's clear. I see someone coming in. Microphone number 1. It's only questions, please.
Yeah, I'm Sunil Balasundaram from the Trinity United Methodist Church, Lickdale. From what I understood was that there will be not, the nominations will be not any more than the vacancies. Is that right? Was that right?
Whatever you all vote, you have to
The number
decide
of
that.
nominations will not exceed the number of vacancies.
That's only in the one that came from the jurisdictional delegation, I believe.
Okay, so that means that that there could be more nominations on the floor that could be sent than the vacancies.
That's correct.
Okay.
There's only 2 vacancies.
The answer to that is yes, according to Reverend Foster. Okay, is the body ready to vote on the substitute? It just takes a simple, we see someone, it is 2/3. Microphone number 2, please.
Dan Roth, Summerfield, Siloam. I'd just like to speak against the substitute, just in the sense that I think the first...
That is not in order. You vote, if you're speaking against it, you vote against it. We're just picking one.
Right, well, I'm saying we don't, okay.
Yeah, we're picking one.
So I can't speak against voting for the substitute?
Well, you really just did, but
Okay.
let's just get on to
Okay.
decide which one we're going to deal with. Then we can start doing all the dealing, But certainly, this takes 2/3, is that right? Okay, parliamentarians, help me out here. Okay, body, if you want to have the substitute and not the original, lift the hand and say aye. If not, same sign. It does fail. Now we're back to the original that is in 2016.1, and we can begin to debate this and speak. We had a speech in favor, obviously, by the maker. So at this time, a speech opposed is in order. Microphone number 6, are you opposed?
I have an amendment.
That's in order.
Chris Fisher, Schuylkill Haven First. This regards the initial nomination of potential candidates. Probably does not affect what we do this year because we've already passed time for this, but I'll read it to you. The Secretary already has this in hand. The annual conference shall, in the year preceding conference session, during which Episcopal candidates are to be nominated, solicit potential nominees from all the members, both lay and clergy, of annual conference. Each member may nominate the number of elders for which there are vacancies in the jurisdiction to be filled, provided the nominees are elders in good standing in the conference. Any elder who receives at least 10 nominations will have their biographical details and personal statement printed in the conference newspaper to be mailed or distributed for study prior to the electing conference session. And if I could speak to that.
This is a substitute. It would not be an amendment. It's just, it actually replaces everything.
No, that's
No?
not my intent. My intent is to add this to that motion as further bylaws by which we do our Episcopal elections, nomination elections.
Hold your thought. We have a lot of deliberations up here. Okay. It would be, it's a motion to replace line 12, 12, 13, and 14. So that would be an amendment.
No, it would go in there at 11. This doesn't prohibit the jurisdiction from coming up with their own, jurisdictional delegation from coming up with their own recommendations, but it allows all the body to contribute a pool to the pool of nominees. Right. This would become point number 1, bumping the others to point 2 and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, it actually does contradict because in 12, the jurisdictional delegation shall determine by its own process. And so you're now suggesting process, so it is replacing and dictating the process.
So this would be a substitution.
A substitution for lines 12 to 14 then. Just an amendment.
Okay. It's a motion to strike and to substitute, so, but we still have to deal with it, don't we? So if you have a second, do I hear a second? Hold the phone. We have a second? Point of order. Number 2, please.
Good afternoon. Lawrence Lee, Coordinator for Black Methodists for Church Renewal, Philadelphia Caucus, lay member, Missouri United Methodist Church. Bishop, we were talking, you had said before that we are following the general rules, the General Conference rules for our discussion. In the General Conference rules procedure for amending by substitution, debate on the motion to substitute, and then following the debate on the motion to substitute, a vote on substitution will occur. If the motion to substitute prevails by a majority vote, the substitute motion becomes the main motion. If the motion to substitute fails to receive a majority vote, the original motion becomes the main motion. And we were saying 2/3, and the General Conference rules, as I understand them, say simple majority.
Well, it looked like a pretty large majority, but are you calling for another vote for the substitute? Okay. Okay. Okay, the parliamentarian says that it's out of order to deal with that right now because we have a motion on the floor, so you can bring this back later. So there's a motion that's been seconded on the floor. Would you like to speak to it, number 6, Reverend Fisher?
Thank you. Yes. Just briefly, this really puts into written form what we've done in the past, that we all get a chance to contribute to the pool of nominees. And then we get to learn about them, including who they are a little bit more and what they might like to say about themselves. As it stands, the motion that was given to us by the jurisdictional conference does not clarify that and doesn't describe that we will get to have any participation in selecting the nominees.
That's a speech in favor. Would anyone like to speak against this? Number 1. Microphone number 1, please.
Lenore Thompson, Wharton Wesley United Methodist Church. It's my understanding that when the process as it currently exists, everybody can nominate somebody for the episcopacy. All the person has to do is have 10 names, or 10 names both for the person. And so if they get the 10, they at least move forward in the process. They're asked, do they want to stay in the process, not be in the process, and they move forward in the process. So you do have input, and if you want someone's name to go forward, you can do that. The second thing is that you still have input even if that person goes before the delegation and for whatever reason they don't go any further. You have caucus groups that could nominate somebody, so you have other ways to get them there. And the bishop always has to take nominations from the floor once we get here. So even if the delegation had come in with someone that the delegation, were nominating, you as a body from the floor could have still nominated someone, and if this annual conference wanted to send someone forward, they could still go forward. So in light of that, I vote against the motion because there's ample time and plenty of opportunity for the body, so to speak, to be a part of the process.
Okay, that would be a speech against. Do we have a speech in favor? That's a speech against. Now I'm asking if there's a speech in favor. I saw, well, let's do one and then we'll do three. Microphone one, this is a speech in favor.
Yes, Rob Timlin, Rules Church.
You're in order.
I'm in favor of this amendment, especially if it begins to address concerns of Reverend Foster. And I'm wondering if it begins to address concerns that came from the substitute. I think if we're going to change our rules, it's good that it's a resolution that comes from the whole elected delegation. But I'd also think we could find a way to have amendments like a Reverend Fisher's, or if Reverend Foster has an amendment, that we could perfect this in a way that everyone is satisfied with the process going forward. I don't know if there would be some tweaks to the voting percentage, or I don't know enough about this to tell you what it would be, but I think everyone in the room would like to see this go forward in a way that we're all happy with the end result. And I would speak in favor of this amendment if it moves us in that direction.
Okay, that would be a speech in favor. Do we have a speech opposed? Microphone number three, no. Anyone speaking opposed? Well, then microphone number three, you can speak in favor again.
My name's Dennis Boer from Salem United Methodist Church, Ulrichsburg. I'm a lay delegate the first time. Been very interesting. I support Reverend Fisher's amendment, particularly because of the part where the names, bios, et cetera, are printed in the newspaper prior to the conference, and people have plenty of time to look, read, study, ask questions. I think that's a particularly very important part. Thank you.
Microphone number six. Reverend Fisher? No, you're cool. You're leaving it. Okay. See no one else at the mic, so, microphone number four.
Hi,
Wait a
Brian
minute.
Noble.
Are you for or against?
I have a question. So this rule won't affect this conference right now, right? I have a question. Could we move this to a special committee to come back next year so we can address some of those concerns that we have and take some time to really think about this?
I think this is out of order because it does affect this year. I mean, even though, so we have to get a system. So I would say that's not a speech for or against. Is the body ready to vote? Simple majority. I see this as kind of a substitution for lines 12 to 14, and everything else stays the same. Reverend Fisher, will you read that one more time? What you're trying to put in instead of line 12 to 14?
Yes, the annual conference shall, in the year preceding the conference session, during which Episcopal candidates are to be nominated, solicit potential nominees from all the members, both lay and clergy, of annual conference. Each member may nominate the number of elders for which there are vacancies in the jurisdiction to be filled, provided the nominees are elders in good standing in the conference. Any elder who receives at least 10 nominations will have their biographical details and personal statement printed in the conference newspaper to be mailed or distributed for study prior to the electing conference session.
Okay. If you will support that, lift the hand and say aye. If not, same sign. It does pass. It is now part of the main motion. are we ready to work on? Okay, microphone number 2.
Lawrence Lee, an amendment to the main motion.
Okay.
I believe that's in order.
Correct.
Line 44, and it talks that after 2 ballots shall be taken, a motion to discontinue balloting shall then be in order, requiring a simple majority. My motion is that we increase that number to 5, to allow ample time for the vetting process, as we do when we solicit general conference delegates. It usually takes more than 2 ballots. If there's a second, I could speak to it.
Is there a second? I hear a second. You may speak to it. And we need this in writing, by the way. But essentially, you're just changing number 2 to 5, right?
That is correct.
But I still need it in writing. Okay, fire away. What's your
The concern, Bishop, is that, as I was beginning to say, I didn't want to continue to make a speech, but now I'm in order. So that when we go through the process, as we know, when we did for general and jurisdiction, that it takes more than 2 ballots. We've never gotten enough people on 2 ballots. And what this says to me, to Reverend Foster's prior comment about disenfranchisement, is that if someone does not get consensus over 2/3, which is a high bar, then a motion to discontinue would be in order, and we could stop it after that. Whereas I feel a better process would be after maybe a 2nd, 3rd, someone would say, okay, I'm not getting traction, I'll drop out so that others could go on. I just feel that 2 is too short to really get a sense of the body as to who should move forward.
speech in favor? Do I have a speech opposed? Seeing none, Reverend, oh, no. Reverend DiPaolo, you want to respond as the...
I'm presenting us on behalf of the delegation, so I don't believe I have the authority to accept or reject that. My sense is that's the will of the body, that you want to have more ballots. That would be fine. That was only put in as indicating the point at which it would be in order. In other words, it would not be in order prior to the 2nd ballot, but it did not necessitate a discontinuance at that point. But if you want to make that 4 or 5 and the body feels that way, that's within the rights of the body to do.
Okay, is the body ready to vote? Change the number from 2 to 5, line 44. I see no one coming to the mic for this, so if you will approve that, lift the hand and say aye. If not, same sign. And it passes. Microphone number 3.
Jason Perkowski, Faith United Methodist Church. I have, and I do have it written up, I have 2 amendments that will bring in some of the ideas that Reverend Foster had brought forward.
And you have these in writing, right?
I have these in writing.
That's good.
So we're adding an additional line between lines, or directly after line 23, that would read that members may also request to open the ballot for nominations from the floor by a 2/3 vote. What that would allow is allow this body to be franchised again, to be able to offer delegates for us to vote on as a body. So that is one amendment that allows the body to be able to have the opportunity before we ballot on the delegations' initial vote or their suggestions, we would be able to offer up additional nominees.
Can we take them one at a time?
Sure.
Okay. Do we have a second on that? I think, okay, I heard a second. Yeah, I finally did. I'm going deaf up here. Okay, so you speak to that.
The concern that Reverend Foster brought up was that the delegation is going to bring forth who they think would be the best Episcopal candidates. However, there might be many other people sitting in this room who have Episcopal candidates that they would like to nominate and that they would like to have considered that may not have been approved by the delegation, but that the body may approve. And this allows us to be able to add those persons to the ballot rather than having to take a 2/3 vote and fail the delegation's suggestion before anybody can be added. Because what the delegation has suggested so far is that they're going to bring 0, 1, 2, 3 candidates themselves. And if we want to bring other persons from the floor, we would actually have to vote against the delegation's recommendation before it would be appropriate for us to bring nominations from the floor. This bypasses that by allowing the body to bring nominations from the floor. And the second half of my amendment also offers a process, just so you know what my second piece would be.
No,
Offers-
no, this
Well,
one
I mean, but
piece.
just that it does tie that together.
No, just to see if we have a speech against on that. Any speeches against? That was a speech in favor. I see someone going to microphone number 6.
Good afternoon. Gary Alt, Southwest District, Chickies United Methodist. Jason, I think the last amendment we just did, which changed lines 12 through 14, eliminated the jurisdictional council from bringing forth nominations, I think.
No, the secretary says it did not.
Okay, I beg your pardon. My
All right.
mistake.
Speech against. Microphone number 4.
Greg Ellis, Disaster Response Coordinator. I am speaking against. If we put in this amendment, I see no reason for the committee to have come up with suggestions in the first place. They would have gone through a vetting process, presented it, have the body say yes. I'm assuming the body would say yes. And then we would have floor nominations, and to me that would just undercut the role of the committee in vetting the potential candidates.
That's a speech against. Does anyone like to speak in favor? Microphone number 6.
Robert Johnson, Central District, Tenley Temple United Methodist Church. Bishop, I think that the problem that we're having here is that there are those in the body who feel disenfranchised by the process. And I think that supporting this amendment brings us in a collegial sense where everyone feels that they're being heard and that they have a voice in saying who represents us from our various ethnic groups. So if we want to be connectional and we want to be supportive, there's nothing to fear by having us all have a say as to who represents us as our Episcopal leader.
That's a speech in favor. Is there a speech opposed? Microphone number 6.
This is really getting silly.
Who are you?
I'm Jane Bonner, and I think this is silly because we
You're
are all
speech
Christians.
against, right? Okay.
We're Christians, and we're supposed to be making our choices as we're led by God, not by whatever color or whatever age or whatever sex people are. And what was said earlier was that it makes it moot for the delegation to do any work of preparation. And if that were the case, then the delegation should not bother interviewing candidates. That's just my statement.
We've had 2 in favor and 2 opposed. Anyone else want to speak? I think the body's ready. So if you will approve the, would you read one more time, Reverend Perkowski? Microphone number 3, please.
This is an insertion at line 23 that would simply say, members may also request to open the ballot for nominations from the floor by a 2/3 vote.
Do you want to have a last word, Reverend DiPaolo? No last word. Okay, if you approve that, and that's a simple majority, lift the hand and say aye. If not, same sign. One more time. If you would approve, lift the hand and say aye. If not, same sign. It does not pass. It does not pass. Okay, it is the order of the day. We're going to have a celebration of ministry and greet our new candidates and celebrate our retirees. And so we're going to take a 5-minute standing break, reset the table, and we'll get back to this someday. We'll keep working on it because this is important business. I appreciate the patience of the body. Let's keep at it. We're going to get this right.